Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hello, my beautiful friend. It's Christy here. Just quickly wanted to pop on here and let you know that my book, Love Life Sober, a 40-Day Alcohol Fast, is now available for order. I will stick a link for you in the show notes. But if you want to head to lovelifesober40dayfast.com, you can get it there on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, pretty much everywhere. I'm really, really thrilled to share this with you, and I cannot wait for you to read it. Thanks.
Christy, sorry. I have to, now that I can fully see because my light is on, you do look like you're wearing pajamas.
It's a sweatshirt.
Now she's showing us. Now
It's
she's
a
showing us
what?
to prove that it's not a one-piece, zippy, jump pajama situation. No shame in your game if it is.
Listen.
Okay, well, I'm never, ever going to wear this when I'm coaching again. Because oh my gosh, you guys. So before we hit record, I was just telling the gals that I was coaching a group and someone asked me if I was wearing my pajamas, and I'm not, okay? So now we're moving on. Karla's back in the podcast studio. And I was also telling Karla before we hit record that Karla's first episode with us is still one of our most listened to episodes. It's one of the ones that gets brought up all the time to us. And so we're happy to have you back.
Wow. You're starting off with tears already in my eyes, so I know we're
no.
ahead. But thank you for sharing that. It's just so encouraging to me. We all know sometimes we're just putting our story out there. You never know. You just don't know. And you go and trust. But it's nice. It's just affirming to hear that. So thank you. And it encourages me to keep doing it.
Oh, yay.
It makes me think about how drawn I think people are to vulnerability, like real vulnerability, because your story is so incredibly vulnerable. We play a lot in the gray area space, but you, like, as you talked in that episode, like, you were in a darker space with that. And I think I can make two stories out of why I think it is very popular with our listeners. Number one, just how beautifully vulnerable it is in your sharing your story and how honest you are with what your journey has looked like. And then the second part of that is I think there are women who are silently suffering, afraid of what could be if they don't get this drinking thing under control. And you give them so much. You're like the poster child for hope.
Oh my gosh. That was my dream. And again, Christy and I were talking a little bit at the beginning, and I want people to know, I wish I could have filmed myself at the beginning. Had I known what I'd be doing now, number one, just how sick I was. And I always tell people, I'm like, you're not in the mood for a selfie when you're dying. It's just not your priority. And again, all the shame piece, all of that. But also the beginning of my drinking journey, because they see me now talking about it. Oh my God. That is not what's like in the beginning. As we say in the South, I was a hot mess and I wanted to keep everything to myself. And I was so filled with shame. But I also saw the importance of people need to see themselves in you. And I think whenever you can go there, and I've shared before, and I shared in the book, like, I didn't talk about the real truth about my drinking till after I was a coach. I had been through training. I was alcohol free. I didn't talk about any of it. That was just the closet that I was going to keep shut. And because I couldn't go there. And as God does, reminds us that we need to show all parts of my story is there for a reason. And I remember even thinking in coaching training, as people were talking about gray area drinking, I started to think in my seat, I wanted to stay small and go, oh God, like, I'm not even, what if they knew? So you start and I was like, wait a minute, people need to see themselves and across the board. That's why I celebrate the gray area drinking conversation. I celebrate the sober curiosity, all of the things, but we also need to talk about the dark times. And so people know that if you are further down on the spectrum, wherever you are, there's hope for you too. It works
Mhm.
no matter where you are. And again, it was scary. I still sometimes, actually, there was an article, it was very exciting. I got interviewed by someone in Charleston, South Carolina, and CBS picked it up and it went, people were picking up all over the place. And so what's cool when it's syndicated like that, I might get a message from someone in California like, "Oh my God, you're in our paper today," or Kentucky, "You're in our paper today." And in there, I am full on talking about cirrhosis. And it just gives me chills to think about, to me in that training room that day going, I'm alcohol free, but I'm not going to talk about the ugly parts of my story. That's staying with me. I'm fine talking about the anxiety component. I'm fine talking about all this, but I will never go there. Two, guess what? I'm in Kentucky and my family's looking at your picture in the paper and you're you're serious. Like, to me, it's also the reminder that's only God's work, right? Where that can take you from that place of such shame. And so I knew like people didn't needed to hear those parts and I wanted them to have hope too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. And you're right, the vulnerability and the relatability is important.
Yeah. And well, and also the truth is, right? Alcohol does what alcohol does. So somebody like Mead and I that were in the gray area, only by the grace of God did we not get
Right.
there, right?
Yeah.
Like it was,
Right.
and when I hear your story or when I hear other women's stories that are further along or whatever you want to call it, I'm like, yeah, I can totally see how that happened. I was on my
Right.
way. Yes.
Right. It's the progression. And that's what I say in my coaching too. I'm like, y'all, alcohol at the end of the day, it's pretty predictable. It
Yes.
does its thing. It just shows up. And again, it just starts to dig a little deeper lives. And again, that's what we saw during the pandemic and that huge people that had been alcohol free for a long time, then all of a sudden went back to it. And or people that were skating along that gray area drinking fell deeper. And it's just the progression.
Mhm.
That's just how it works when it creates that stronger need. And then you get further down the line, and then you keep trying to fix it, and you keep trying to fix it on your own. And it just doesn't work that way. But, and again, it's important. And also, I needed to share it because I think people get shocked because they're like, they needed to hear that I was fully functioning. I was
Mhm.
not the person on the
Yeah.
side of the street and that had been arrested and in trouble and all of these things and just this lost cause, right? I was working. I was functioning. I owned a home. I lived a lot. I did all my things. So it didn't paint the picture of what people want to think that liver failure and cirrhosis looks like. And that's just not the truth. That was the importance of hearing what was happening during the pandemic and hearing about how the fast rise of people dying. And it was young women that was topping the charts there. And that's when I knew I wanted people to know, listen, you're not alone. Even if you get that diagnosis, it sounds so scary, but you can be okay. And it's just about getting healthy again.
Yeah, that's so good. That is
Hmm.
so good. I'm curious because I know there's a lot of recent data and about cirrhosis in young women now, and I think we've gotten even more information in the last couple years, right? Of like
Yes.
that number spiking. So, what actually does that look like right now?
I wish I knew the number. I don't know the number. I just knew it was
Yeah.
women for when I last time I looked at the numbers, it was women in their mid 30s that was this skyrocketing. And also I think God works so many times in numbers. I see him show up and and it was that I was in that age range when I had gotten sick. So again, it was this reminder. It is the yous out there that are getting sick, and also the importance of knowing how dangerous it is. Mhm. Because it's like playing a game of Russian roulette, right? I've met people and that they're like, I just need to get past this hurdle and then I'm going to address my drinking.
Yeah.
And just like my story, where it truly was a waiting game. There, when I was hospitalized, there was nothing they could do. It was a waiting game to see if my liver started back. Now, I do think there's some different guidelines now, and that'd be good. I will definitely follow up with y'all and share what those are because when I got sick, there was a requirement that you had to be 6 months alcohol free to get a liver transplant. So the me's of the world that show up sick, they can't do anything about it. So they'll have to just let you go. And there's nothing that can be done. I think
Wow.
there's been some changes in that area, but I'm not sure. But I do. That's the good stuff to follow up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd imagine just the awareness of it is huge. You've been such a courageous, braving sharing this in a way and using your voice for that. So I would imagine just the awareness is so much greater now. And yeah, having the
People are
number.
talking about it
Yeah.
more. They're just talking about it more. And oh my God, again, I just celebrate all of the conversations around it. I hear a lot. And that was one of the really cool things about the book coming out was realizing who it impacted. Of course, I was writing it to the me's of the world that were sick and they're scared and they're stuck. But to hear from the family members that were impacted and to have people reach out that their child was in the hospital, same thing. And it's this waiting game. And it's like one of those things of like, want to go, like, do you want me to talk to him? I'll talk to anybody. Like, it's one of those moments, but it's why I love having the book out there and it is bringing on awareness and also hope to people, not only those people, but family members, but the gray area drinkers that are saying, oh my God, what made me rethink that I need to reach for a glass of wine because I'm frustrated with my kids. I had no idea that it would impact those people as well. And again, it's so exciting. And it goes back, I was sharing with Christy too, like it was just so special. Y'all's podcast for me, it was the first time that I was really able to talk about my faith component in it. And that's key, right? It's not anything that I want to, and I heard from someone one time, they're like, Carly, your faith is woven throughout the book. It was so clear. And that was so important to me because it was the first time I was able to share those things because I was frozen in fear and shame for a long time. I remember that, and I think we talked about it some on that podcast, that what started this? What started Carla going, wait a minute, I'm going to do this? And it was a Bible study. And we were studying Matthew, and it was the parable of the hidden talents. And it was, I was, the farmer gives the talents to these three people, the two others invest it, and the other one buries it. And I could not get out of my head at that moment. I'm like, I am burying y'all. Why don't I get on your podcast and go straight for the tears every time? It's exactly what I'm doing. I am burying this gift of life. Like, I'm alcohol free. And that was my prayer. I'm like, God, I am doing it. I am doing what you told me. I'm being obedient. I'm not drinking. I'm so happy. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. It's just my life has changed. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about it, but I was hiding it and holding on tight when I was here for a reason. But what was so key was I remember when it really clicked for me that night, like how much I was under attack and just I couldn't sleep. Don't you dare share your story. You're going to be
Mhm.
made fun of. And I remember it was so specific to my daughter that I was going to be an embarrassment to her one day. And so it was so loud in my head. And I obviously just got me right at the weak spot, especially our children. And she is going to be made fun of if you ever share the story. And that's what pushing past that. And a cool thing that happened that I knew I wanted to share with y'all. And again, it's why it's so important to bring the faith component in, just to see that he's been walking alongside me the whole way was, and I forget how long ago, obviously post book, but I walked in and my daughter had to come with me to get my hair done. Y'all know we're not going to skip our hair appointments. So she was tagging along with me that day. And one of the people, there was someone in there that just, they're like, "Oh my gosh, your book." And it caught me off guard. I was like, "Oh, yes, my book,
That's
see my
good.
book." And she grabbed my hands and she just looked at me and she's like, "Your book changed my life." And of course, then I'm like crying but there was this key moment there, and it took me back to that being under complete attack. Don't share this. How much you're gonna impact her. And I look at my daughter watching this interaction,
Mm.
and she was filled with such pride. And if I had listened to that, like in this full circle moment of seeing it's just the opposite. Like she is so proud of me. And I was so thankful. As a moment I will never forget. I'll never forget. And just to have her see that happen. And again, it's that important thing of not listening to those attacks when they come. And I think it's one of those things that I've tried to remind myself of when I'm overwhelmed with noises like that. That typically means I'm headed in the right direction.
Mm.
And it feels scary. It feels uncertain. Oh gosh, yeah, like you say that because you've been there. But it's so important. It almost can be, when you understand that, empowering. When that is
Mhm.
so loud, it's, wait a minute, clearly gonna be disrupting something if keep heading this direction. So it's kind of the point of I am headed the right way.
That's
So
that's brilliant. I hope everybody hears that and replays it again, because I think what you just said there is so key, because isn't that exactly when the enemy, the evil one, wants to, when you're on to creating beauty and goodness in this world with the Lord, when you're co-creating with him as he has called us to co-create with him, isn't that exactly the place where the enemy is going to try and shut it down? And so reframing those negative thoughts and those seeds of doubt that are being planted in those moments, and hearing that, paying attention to that, and reframing those as, wow, proof that
right.
like you're
What if
headed in
I
the right
get
direction. Yes.
yes, what if I got a little excited about this? What
Ugh.
if I'm ruffling some feathers? What if? And have that be this excitement driver. And I remember there's this woman, and I love her name was Nancy Bryan. She's my pastor's wife, and she would just always speaking into me. But she gave me this thing. She said, "The devil always overplays his card. Just
Mm.
always keep that in mind." And that's what comes to mind, because it's too much, right?
Yep.
It's, wait a minute. It's not just that you slammed your earbuds in the door. It's like, it's not just that your card didn't work in the store, and it's the insecurity on top of this building. It's everything. And then you're like, why me? And then it's, if it can hit you and go, wait a minute, what is happening to me? Because there's something there. And I so firmly believe that. And again, it's not easy. It is a reframe. And that's why it's good to have community and people to talk to about these things. Because when you're in the middle of this, it's hard to pump the brakes a little bit when you're in panic mode, but it really is a powerful one to reset and reframe it. And then my thing is also to, that's the powerful thing about journaling, is write that down, because I am telling you, you are going to see something come on the other side of that. And that's where we see God's promises come true. And you're like, oh my, look at that. And you have no idea. And we all know it can never be, we can't even dream of what he has in store. We just
Mm.
can't. September hit my 10-year anniversary of stopping drinking.
Wow.
And it truly, I was at the gym, and obviously I always celebrate. I recognize the time frames, but there was something about 10 years that was significant to me. And it's important because I think it helps you really ground you in that gratitude and thankfulness for where you are. But I just happened to rejoin this gym that I used to go to all the time. And obviously, life happened, COVID happened, and I stopped going to the gym. So I'm back at this gym. And the day of my 10-year sober date, alcohol free date, whatever you want to call it, I was walking on the treadmill and I flashed back and I 10 years ago walking on one of those things in the same building, hearing podcasts around this topic for the first time. I was newly alcohol free. I was so scared. I just didn't, I was just trying to figure out life and how to do this thing. But it was the first time I started hearing about the science. And I was like, oh my gosh, I heard myself in these people's stories. I know it's why it's so important for all of us to keep sharing because I was hearing myself. I was getting that bit of hope. I was being blown away by things that I did not know that alcohol did. And I know most people don't know that alcohol does. And I couldn't help but just get so giddy walking on that treadmill. If you had told that scared girl going, "Oh my gosh, what is it?" Like that I would be doing what I was doing 10 years later, there's no way I would have believed it. It's just, and it happens in these little, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens over time. But that reflection is
Yeah.
so important, to stay in that, wait a minute, to see how much you've grown. We can get
Mhm.
stagnant there sometimes.
Yeah.
Christy and I say a lot. We've been saying a lot recently, like only
Right.
God could have lined all of these little pieces. It's all of these little pieces that go together that make this. And then, wait, where are we? What are we doing? How is this what we get to be doing right now?
Right.
It's just only God. And to your point, being able to reflect on it and mark it, that's one way that we change the stories, change the neural pathways that we have that say that whatever stories we had stories about alcohol that kept us stuck in the drinking cycle. I had stories I know about God, and I know you did too. But one of the stories I had was I think you share this, and I would love for us to go in this direction for a little bit, but that faith, Christianity is a religion, not a relationship. Like, I'm sure I learned at some point that, like, Jesus and relationship, I'm sure I learned that. I just didn't have the ears to hear before 6 years ago. And you had said that this morning too, and I'm like, "Yes, we have to talk
Yes.
about that because there are so many of us that." And that's where we get to change the stories that keep us stuck and kept us distant maybe from God or seeing God as this religion and not a relationship.
Yes. And I do think it's so important because you mentioned too one time, you're like, we like, what is your faith story? Like what is that? And I started off, it was one of those, again, it was the more religion, in which I so appreciate, where my
Yes.
parents making sure that we were in church every Sunday. If you didn't go to church, guess what? You were not going to be leaving the house that day either. And especially in the South, going to the Cracker Barrel or wherever after church and having a meet and three or something. It was just part of my life. But I went because I had to. And, but during that, you get these foundation blocks, this different understanding. But there was not the understanding there that I is different now that I am trying to incorporate with parenting my daughter, and it's that relationship piece. And that is what switched for me. And sadly, it took me getting gravely ill for that to happen. But and again, and I know that people were planted in my life along the way. There's some just beautiful people that what they were telling me didn't take then, but I remembered it years later. And I want to say that too, to encourage everybody. Like, if God puts on your heart to say something to someone, then say it. You never know the impact, and it may not be. immediate, but it is that reflection of the people that did pour into me and that did stick there somewhere. But shifting to God, I need you. And in a cry out, like not a formal, many of my prayers were not, they were ugly. They were the ugly cries, the snotty, like, I don't understand. But it was truly like I had to hit my knees and just reach out. And I think that's another thing too that I think is so important is to then when you ask and you then put your trust, it's so easily to say, "Oh, then I put my trust in him." But did you? Like it's I am going to lean on you are the only person I can lean on right now and that's it. No one else. It was me and him and he 1,000% carried me. And I remember it was almost like I need you to just look at me. And that is to me when I could have the ears to listen and obviously have that foundational work to know that's where I needed to reach out. So I don't want to do that at all. It's
Yeah.
just again, it was just that relationship. How do I pray to God like that? That sounded pretty insulting. I sounded angry. I sounded mad and upset. But it's what got me to here. And it was like, you are looking everywhere else but at me. And there was a huge shift there for me in that being broken, and that trust and knowing. And I remember even one time, it was just, it was, it was just such scary times. And that was the hard thing about writing the book too, is just the reality, like of how touch and go things were for me. Of there was just, they just didn't know. And I had one of those prayers with God, and I just said, and I was telling my family, I'm going to live. I am. And I will live. I do not know what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to live. And, just keeping with that consistent, no, this is not it for me. But that was only just with that trust and just handing it over and saying, you are in control. And that, as y'all know, is so hard to do.
Mhm.
And I try and practice that and I try and live that so my daughter can work on those foundation pieces, but also see me trusting and leaning in and praying in conversation. Like during the drive home from school, you know what? Let's just put this out there and pray right now. And just having that be more of a relationship instead of the formality. Because there was a lot of too, if I didn't go to church for a while, I was bad. Or just all those beliefs that were taught and you then struggle with. And then you're like, I don't deserve to go there. And I really want people to know it doesn't have any, it's truly, it's that relationship, it's that one on one. And it's so beautiful. And it's just so grounding. People want to talk about different things that ground them. That
Can't
will
get any
ground
better
you.
than that.
I don't know of any better way to ground yourself than having him and knowing and trusting, just fully trusting. And again, that's just, it's not easy to do.
Imagine stepping into a vibrant, warm community where faith, friendship, and freedom from alcohol all come together. That's exactly what you'll experience in the But Jesus Drank Wine community.
Each week, our members gather for connection calls that feel like a breath of fresh air, a time to share, grow, and support one another.
With an encouraging leadership team, a dedicated prayer request space, and connection opportunities in every time zone, you don't have to walk this journey alone.
Plus, we bring you masterclasses with expert guests, optional book clubs and Bible studies, and so much more.
And for those ready to go even deeper, we offer a small group coaching space called The Missing Piece. With weekly recorded coaching calls, it's a supportive place for women committed to breaking free from alcohol.
We're here to hold space for sober and sober curious women who love Jesus or are eager to reconnect with him. Wherever you are on your path, you'll feel seen, supported, and strengthened here.
As one member described, quote, the BJDW community is unique because there's a connection between faith and freedom from alcohol that I haven't been able to find in any other online space or through my church.
Ready to join the sisterhood? Head over to butjesusdrinkWine.com/community or click the link in the show notes to learn more. We can't wait to meet you.
It's not easy, and it's something that, yeah, my like full surrender moment came after Lily Jet had said, no kisses tonight, Mom. Your breath smells like wine. That was a big wake up call for me. And that was a surrender moment. That was like, I'm desperate. I've tried it. I've tried it my way, Lord, a million times. I keep trying. And really what I was trying to do is I was trying to have it all. I was trying to have the best of
Right.
both worlds. And it really took me just saying, okay, like enough of my way. I'm fully surrendered to you and your way. And what was cool about that is I didn't know that I didn't have a relationship, so to speak, with the Lord. I didn't know that I was missing that. And that's what became available to me a afterwards, where I was just like, I just thought I was a Christian and that was it. And that's where we always talk about, like, finding freedom from alcohol is great, and if that was all that changed, that I'm a blissful, effortless non-drinker now, fantastic, but
Right.
it's what I've gotten is so much more than that, and Jesus is the biggest piece of that, the biggest.
100%. And here's the thing, if I was really real with myself, and if anybody listening, and just because there's just judgment free, right? If I was
Yeah.
really being real, I would tell people all the time, I have prayed about that. I have prayed about. No, I didn't. I went to wine about that.
Mhm.
That's what I did about that conflict with the friend. That's what I did with the stress with the work. That's what I did ultimately every single night. I'd pray about it, sure. Pray about it too. But what did I go to
Yes.
for the answer? And that
Yes.
is a key difference. And again, and this is where I would love to combine this. Oh, many times I'll say, I wish the medical world, Western medicine world, and the whole naturopath world, there could be such a beautiful middle, right? And I feel the same with like church and alcohol. Like there could be such a beautiful middle because they are talking to people about this message and relationship and how and about Jesus, and that is so important. But there's not any of that science stuff for us to truly understand what alcohol is. And that was a game changer for me. And that
Same.
is to me truly understanding how we're made, how our body processes it. It's
Yeah.
all our temple and how it all is cohesive. It truly is. But to have those both of those things, that is a powerhouse. Having them separate is a mistake. And bringing them together, I think, is can be really powerful. But again, most people don't know. Most people still don't understand truly what alcohol is in the science. I think we have made huge strides, but we've got a ways to go. And I just think it could be, and how much more helpful they could be too if they understood truly what alcohol was.
Yeah, that's so good. I think I have so many things to say, but I just feel like when you were talking about, like, growing up with this foundation, and for me too, it's I had that foundation, but had prayed exactly like you're saying, and it was a super transactional thing when I needed something or I was worried about something or I was, like, stressed out about the kids. But when I had my, like, moment in front of the mirror, I knew exactly who I was going to. And so
Right.
for that reason I know I'm gonna cry. For that reason, I'm so grateful for that foundation, but a few weeks ago when Mead and I were like we were chatting about, like, who are we trying to talk to? We're just, like, up in here trying to
Right.
do a marketing exercise or something, and we're like, "Who are the people? Who are the women that are listening, and who are the women that are coming to our community?" And it is women that are reconnecting in this way, just like all 3 of us did, right? But alcohol got in the way of that relationship. It made us not even realize that it was a relationship. All of these
Yes.
things. And that is why I just get really fired up and think alcohol is such a tool of the freaking enemy
It
because because it keeps us disconnected, because it keeps us numbed out and foggy and disconnected and all these things. And it just, yeah, it gets me
Yes.
really fired up.
It yeah, I get very fired up too, and as we should, because it is the ultimate disconnector. And I too, I've even now, I for the first time here where I live, I've have the small friend group and it's people that don't drink. I've never had that here. And I'm telling you, I didn't realize how much I was missing. That one-on-one, that random trip to TJ Maxx and friendship. You know what I mean? As along with that conversation and it is such a cool friendship. And I'm so appreciative of it because listen, I have met some of the most amazing people online, and that's what got me through the whole beginning. That I truly have that community and that in-person connection with other women. Man, I didn't realize how much I was missing that. And I want people to be able to find those people and have those conversations. And so the shame piece around it has to be removed so we can share more about it. And I do think that part's changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we say, or we hear in the, community where we hear in our groups. I haven't I haven't picked up a Bible in 25 years, but there's that carries is just it's just like alcohol. It's I've been stuck in this drinking cycle of not wanting to drink and wanting to drink all at the same time, and I can't free my it's like the same kind of shame from the enemy that keeps us stuck there and not able to break through and reconnect to the Lord. I really think alcohol is like the death like the death blow. It's
Right.
like we turn in our flesh nature and our human nature, we turn away from the Lord at whatever, make all these small turns that get greater and greater distance from the Lord. And then at some point we gave alcohol this little tiny opening in our lives because it is so benign, air quotes, y'all. It's not benign.
Right.
We gave it this tiny opening and then it comes and it just offers that like final like death blow to us to where we're disconnected from so anything that was already maybe starting to form, like yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so it's so beautiful that we can have a chance to again, it comes back to the courage, the vulnerability that it takes to share our stories, whether it's our freedom from alcohol story and what it looked like there, or the stories that kept us stuck with our Christian faith, but not a religion and not a relationship, whatever that is, it's just we need more conversations with women so that they understand that like it doesn't have to continue that way. Shame off you, my girl. Just like I tell my girls
Yes.
when they're like beating themselves up for something. I'm like, shame off you, my girl. We are not going there. Let's turn and go this way. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the important thing. And I've seen a big shift in that too, where again, 10 years ago when I'm entering this world, oh my God, it was just dark. And it was this, oh,
Yeah.
hard, one day at a time. It seemed miserable.
Yes.
And I think the more that we're talking, because I want people to know, God, you are missing out. I can't help but giggle now when I can tell someone almost like they feel bad for me. Like, hey, I don't get to drink. I'm like, you have no idea.
Or
I
Hey,
know.
we all get it where it's like, oh, is it okay if I'm like, listen, you have no, I do not, I wouldn't touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. I want people to know there's so much beauty on the other side. There is that real relationship on the other side. There is that growth and really stepping into who you are. We are making ourselves so small when we ultimately lean on that substance. And that is how it slowly, like you said, you open it up the door just a crack. But then what it does is it just slowly starts weaving its way into your life. And anybody listening to this, I know can resonate with this. It starts with just a little bit socially, then it's cooking during dinner, then it is a slow, seductive, sneaky thing. And before you know it, you're doing it at everything, and different events, socializing. And then you don't know how to do those things without it. And
Mhm.
it's important. And I think I would encourage people to do that too. Think back to when it first started. What truthfully did the progression look like? Really.
And I think about too, yeah, how why your story ended up being your story and not mine. It like either one of us sitting right here, the three, like, why are you the one that had liver failure and I didn't? Like, because we weren't really doing anything differently. Like our
Right.
lives looked pretty similar. And I think that's where also it just the more conversation we can have about it and just bringing it into the light, the awareness that we can have around how that slow, slippery slope can take a pretty drastic turn at some point. And God doesn't want that for you. We don't want that for you. There's so much more
Yes.
on the
think I think there's so much. I was just talking with the other coaches that I work with about this, and I think so many people are out there, and their biggest block to even starting this process is the fear of failure.
Mhm.
And again, society has set us up
Yes.
for failure on this one, and so I just want to blow that concept up for people. And one, it requires these conversations. So it gets that curiosity. What are they talking about? But then it's this, oh, what if I can't stop for
Mhm.
the 30 days? Or what if I fail? And we've got this ingrained in it. It's this 30-day, like something magical is gonna, if, if I fail, then something's wrong with me. And I'm like, we need to just blow that whole concept up and just, what if I just learn for 30 days or try it out and there's no failure? There is a big fear of failure out there. And I
Yeah.
want people to know, just try it. There's no such thing. What if there's no such thing as failure?
Mhm.
Would you try
Mhm.
it then? And really just try and step into it because we know that's not from God, the fear that, and I can guarantee you that whisper of what it would sound like and what would people say, or what if you don't make it? Maybe then you are one of those that you have a problem. And I just want people to, let's just blow away that kind of thinking that and really step into it and just what if I try it? And then what if? What am I what could happen? What are the possibilities? Instead of the negative, and I so want people to understand that.
But
Yeah.
it's like you started with too. If that's there, then you're probably onto something good. So you're then in
Yes.
that place of awareness. You're hearing the negative, you're hearing the fear take over. That means you're onto probably something good here that your life the Lord has so much more for you waiting for you on the other side of freedom from alcohol. So
Yes.
let's say, yeah, we're not going to go
Y
there. We're not going to welcome in those thoughts and let's go the other way.
yes, and I think that would be because I know y'all sometimes do the tiny takeaways. Is that
Yeah.
what y'all do?
Tiny Tina.
That would be
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Good.
just listen to that when you hear that voice, whatever it's saying to you, and it's the negative, it's the scary. It is, number 1, I'll say, what is the lie? But I think my biggest thing would be like reframing and that into, oh, what are the possibilities? What if I lean into this fear? What is on the other side of that? Because I'm just telling you from my experience, you are 100% headed in the right direction. That scary place is where you need to go. But that's where beautiful podcasts like this are so important, where people can hear and find the right places, find the right people to help support them on that journey. So it's
So,
important.
so good. I'd love to just wrap us with you talked about this before, like the healing journey that came from writing your story. So, like stepping into that fear, and turns out there was this whole other level of healing that you got to experience as a writer. So, it was one thing to write your story and share, not bury your talents anymore, as the Lord
Right.
called you
In a big
into
way.
sharing your story. Yeah. But
Yeah.
then, and that benefits other people. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that helped heal some things in you, because I'm thinking about the listener right now who is confidently in that free from alcohol space, who is like, oh my gosh, life is so much better. And oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is my life. And also is holding their story close to them Would you speak to that
Well,
listener from
yeah,
your experience?
100%. And because I do, I want people to know again, this is a process, right? Even that during writing the book was a big process for me. I didn't realize how much would come up for me during that process.
Mhm.
But when I was writing my whole story, I realized there was conversations that I still need to have with people. And these people, I am telling, they're good friends that love me. And as much as I was saying I was free, I was really sharing in little pockets. I was like, started with my coach, with Lorna Wilson, who I just treasure and love, just going there. And then it was in one of my coaching groups that I was coaching in, and I shared it with them for the first time. Again, still a real safe audience, right?
Yeah.
Freeing, just and getting braver. So it was just this. I didn't become alcohol free and start shouting it from the rooftops. It was just these baby steps, but it's stepping into discomfort. And I think when we're doing that too, especially like the conversations with friends was one block. Mhm. And good friends and being real about this cirrhosis. They knew about my drinking, but there were still pieces that I was hiding. And again, then I'm not completely free. And to give myself you don't need to force yourself either.
Yeah.
But if you're still like if you're to that point where you're like, okay, they love me and but I realized it was the shedding of more shame. I didn't know y'all I had more to shed, but I clearly did. And but even stepping into the day that the book was released, it was that ultimate let go because there's no control over who is reading about this now. And it I had self-contained it and again tried to hold on to that
Yes.
control like we'd love to do. It was the truly letting go. And I didn't realize how much more freedom was there when you truly do that. And it's a confidence that I didn't have before. It's not keeping myself small. And it was just, again, it was a sharing because I know so many people that they meet in these groups, right? These amazing groups, and they get comfortable and they share in amazing friendships because of the vulnerability. But there's people in your world that you're still not going there with. And I really want to, again, encourage people with the right ones,
Yeah.
step into it and let them get to see you and know you in a way, and it feels so scary. So when I say that, no, I get it, but there's more freedom on the other side of that. It's a process. It doesn't all happen at once, but again, leaning into where we're hearing the lie about ourselves or don't say this. It is always for me, it was always stay silent, don't share was my key to gotta open my mouth about this one. But and trusting doing with the right people and then again got me prepared for that big let go. And it's just again, it's a peace and it's hard to describe. It's a peace and it's a confidence that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. No, it's so good.
So good.
I have one final question. I feel like we always say, like, over and over again that it just keeps getting better, it just keeps getting better, just keeps getting better, and so, since you're roughly 5 years ahead of me and I on the date, so you're 10 years, we're about 4 or 5, what in the last 5 years has surprised you or gotten better?
Oh, I think for me, it's been so exciting. Like my world shift from my, as I said earlier, my fancy terminology, hot mess express and the podcast, then it moved into this place of my wiser self and never being that for someone else. I've never really had that role for someone else. And I've seen over time and it's such an honor that I've seen, and I think it's come with that peace and with that confidence that
Mhm.
people that I've never, expected, like truly want to come and have conversation and help with the guidance, help with where to go. And if you had told me that I would be that for other people, it would have surprised me. And I think again, I had to get to a certain place And that has been the more recent. In these more recent years, a lot of coaches do the exercise with that your inner mentor and your inner self, and that's that person that's of your essence, your inner strength. And I see myself in that role now of still being human. But at the end of the day, having carrying that peace and confidence with me every day, I'm telling you, it does because it keeps getting better. So I can't wait to see what happens 5 years from now. And hear from y'all because it is true when you hear all of us say it keeps getting better. It truly does in ways that you don't expect.
Yeah. In
Hmm.
ways that,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know that there's no way I could have ever believed any of this was possible. Freedom from alcohol, let alone all the other that comes, and just
Right.
being able to be in horrible situations or really like some really hard places and still having just peace. And it's just a totally different world. And I could not have wrapped my head around how that was possible
No.
until I'm now living it and walking it and going, thank you, God, for what you have done for me. And
Yes, but I'm with you. That was my biggest, like, initially, like, the free like, I wouldn't even think about alcohol, never thought that was
who would have
possible.
thought? Yeah.
Do it, would have not. But then it just gets deeper and better. And again, so it's so encouraging, but it's so important. And so thank y'all for having this podcast because it's how people hear it. And it's how I know at the beginning of my journey, it was podcasts that I just couldn't get enough. And so I know people are listening to y'all. So y'all are doing such a huge, amazing thing. And Mead, I screamed when I got your email. Anytime you want me on, I love it. I love it.
Well,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, yes. Are you kidding?
We've only been talking about having you back on for at least like 8 months or something.
Yeah. And I'm like, which what back? Yeah, long overdue, but we're
So
so
much
thrilled.
fun. It's a good
Yeah.
conversation with Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
Carla.
thank
What a joy.
Absolutely.
you're the best.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me anytime. I'll come back anytime.
Can you remind our listeners where they can find you and your book and all
Yes,
the
you
places?
can absolutely. You can find my book, and she came tumbling down on Amazon. I owner of the Zero Proof Life, and we have these amazing Zero Proof Life challenges. So if you want to get that intro to stop drinking, please join us at the Zero Proof Life. But I also have started a very fun thing on my Instagram. I don't know if y'all seen it, Taste Test Tuesday
I have.
with my friends. They're so much fun. So follow me on Instagram. It's where we try alcohol-free drinks, and it has started a whole life of its own. And it's one of my dear friends here that stopped drinking. And when she stopped drinking, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to start a business. There's not any good alcohol-free drinks here." So she had the clarity and just started this business. And we started this thing, and it is just, again, it has taken on a life of its own, and it is funny, and because sometimes it does not go well, they're not good. So
Yeah.
we are being honest to our listeners. So if you want a good giggle, follow me on Instagram. It's Karla Adkins. I'm sure y'all can find me.
Yeah, we'll put it in all the show notes
Yeah.
too. I'll put a link to buy the book and all the things, and we'll also put a link to your first episode in case gals
Okay.
wanna get that too, so thank you, Carla. We love you so much.
I love y'all too. Thank you for having me. Mwah.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrinkwine.com, and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free. To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com. Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two. And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement. Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.